So in our checkpoint discussion tonight, let's bring in the CEO of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, Ezra Chiloba, to just put perspective in some of the issues surrounding the mass voter registration, the second phase that begins on Monday. Buona CEO, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, if you can just take us through the process, just how will the biometric voter registration kits be distributed? Maybe how many clerks are we looking at?
First of all, you'll note that this will be the second mass voter registration campaign that we are launching, and it is the last campaign before the next election.
Right.
So if there is someone out there who has not been able to register as a voter, this is an opportunity for them to register, because we're not going to have any other registration after 14th of February. It's going to take 30 days, and we're going to use biometric registration system, the one that we acquired for the 2013 general elections. So far, we've been able to deploy 7,793 kits across the country, and the least a county assembly ward can get will be 3 kits. And we are talking about county assembly wards of 4 square kilometers, 3 square kilometers. So then the largest distribution will be in vast county assemblies, North Horr and Upper Eastern, where we're going to see that each county assembly ward is going to get at least 10 kits per ward. So we expect that all voters who are not or potential voters who are not registered and they're eligible to register, they're going to show up during this period. And so far, we have been able to deploy also about 21,000 officers in the field to be able to carry out this exercise.
Is there a standard procedure maybe? There were instances where BVR kits or clerks were moving from place to place.
Right.
Or are they going to be stationary? Is there a standard procedure maybe to make sure you reach as many or registered voters as possible?
Yeah, what we've done this time around is that given the number of kits, first of all, we've increased the number of kits. And secondly, for county assembly wards, which are smaller in size, for example, Port Trees, county assembly number 1, is 4 square kilometers. It has got 3 registration centers, and it's going to get 3 kits. It means that that center will have a kit for a period of 30 days.
Okay.
You don't have to move from one point to the other. However, the other areas whereby you'll get registration kits being in one center for a minimum of 10 days before they move to the next center.
Right.
So we've tried to balance that. Previously, of course, you'll show up at the registration center. You were told the kit was here yesterday.
Yes.
And we didn't have enough of them. We didn't have enough officers to deploy at the particular time. But this time around is a little bit different. But what is also important to note is that we've been able to open up the kits, so that if you're in a particular constituency and you want to register to vote in a particular ward, you have an opportunity to register anywhere within the particular constituency where you're going to find the kit. Okay. So that also works to reduce the distance and increase the number of people who register.
You're targeting between 4 to 6 million,
right,
if I'm correct?
Right.
In the first phase, that was in the beginning of last year, you were targeting 4 million. You got slightly more than 1 million. What have you done differently this time around?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have always targeted actually 8 million additional voters on the voters roll from the 2013 register. Right. Our target of 4 million in the first round was not achieved, partly because of the constraints of budget. We had requested the government to allocate us 2 billion Kenyan shillings. We ended up getting only 500 million Kenyan shillings. That meant that the number of kits that we deployed were much less. The number of officers to deploy to the field were much less. We did not have enough resources for mobilization. Right. This time around, we've actually recruited 2,900 community-based voter educators or mobilizers to work hand in hand with local leaders to ensure that people know where the kits are, and also to just emphasize the importance of registration. So then, of course, we're going to have an enhanced media campaign around the registration. Right. Then lastly, of course, we've been able to engage with the different actors. We met the media on Monday last week. We met civil society organizations, religious leaders. We also met political parties. And we hope that this time around, because of the interest of the elections, we're going to have a very high turnout.
All right.
Yeah.
If you can just tell our viewers maybe how the voter roll looks like right now, how many voters are registered, and how many do you intend or do you target to have overall on the 8th of August?
In 2013, first of all, we had 14.4 million voters on the voters roll. Following the continuous registration exercise that we carried out post-2013, as well as the mass voter registration campaign in February, March last year, by December last year, the record shows that we have about 15.9 million records of registered voters. Mark you, that does not, it still includes what we may call dead voters, whose data we are still processing. We have to receive it from the Registrar of Births and Deaths, but at least in terms of records, we have 15.9 million voters. Our expectation is that if we get 4 million in addition to that, that takes you all the way to 20 million voters before the next election.
All right. This is also, there's something that many Kenyans don't know about, that is a continuous voter registration, which is usually always ongoing in the constituency offices.
Right.
During this mass voter registration, you also set to scale up the facilitation of voter education. Many people ask, why doesn't the IEBC do continuous voter education to make people know and understand that the registration is ongoing all the time, rather than spend a lot of time and money in this 1 month only?
Well, I mean, it's not cheap. Voter education is not cheap. That means every day you must be in the media talking about continuous voter registration after one election to the other election.
Right.
So we made the strategic choice that Kenyans respond very well during mass campaigns like this ones. So the investment in voter education program during the continuous voter registration is not that high compared to what we have now, partly because of the potential, because of human behavior of the potential voters. Right. So we think there'll be a lot of excitement in such a campaigns, and people are going to really turn out to register. And the output of the continuous voter registration has always been lower compared to the mass voter registration campaigns.
Speaking of human behavior, have you made maybe a provision for the last 2 weeks or so? Because Kenyans are not for the last minute rush to try and do something.
Yes.
This will probably not be different.
What we're encouraging Kenyans is that, look, we got 30 days. And for you to be able to register at your convenience, take a chance to register early. Because we'll delay towards the end, and there'll be a lot of pressure. And there's also a chance that you might miss out on the last day. So what we're saying during our voter education engagements is to encourage those eligible voters to actually go there early enough, as opposed to waiting until the last minute.
All right. The issue of national identity cards has come up a lot, especially in political rallies. Is the national government doing anything to facilitate IEBC in terms of people being, especially young people, first-time voters probably, being able to get their IDs in time to register?
I'll say about 2 things on that matter. One is that registration is undertaken by the National Registration Bureau. Right. That is issuance of ID cards. And the challenge, I think, that they've faced over time has been that of collection. People register, but they do not go back to collect their national IDs. As of last year, we're talking about 600,000. So what we've encouraged our officers to do in the field is to collaborate with the National Registration Bureau offices, as well as the local leaders, especially the chiefs, to ensure that the people who had applied for IDs actually reached out to ensure that they actually come and collect their IDs. We have some of the successful cases, success stories like in Isiolo, where some of our officers worked very closely with the National Registration Bureau, and they moved from one point to the other, following on those eligible registrants to ensure that they collect the IDs. Right. And during the continuous registration, then they were also registered. It's the same thing that we're looking at this time around, and we hope that the provincial administration, ward administrators as a county government branch will also be keen on ensuring that people who have applied for ID cards, go collect those ID cards. So those are the modalities that we're working with.
Some Kenyans will be asking, what about those with waiting cards? What are called waiting cards?
Yeah, waiting cards, one is that it's no longer part of the law. In the last election, Parliament enacted a law that would allow people with waiting cards to register as voters. But given the challenges around the waiting cards, waiting card does not give you an identity number. It's just a waiting card. So that means that when you show up at the polling day and show up with an ID card, it means that that ID card will not be consistent with the data that is on the waiting card. So we requested Parliament to delete that particular provision.
All right.
And so if you're not registered, if you don't have an ID then you will not be allowed to register.
All right. As we speak, a lot of politicians and political players are going around the country, trying to mobilize their supporters to come out in large numbers and register as voters. According to the IEBC, what is the best, most legal way, so to speak, of doing this, of mobilizing, Kenyans to register as voters without breaking the law?
One, I think, if there's something that political parties or political actors must agree on, is that registration is important. You can only talk about solid competition if you have voters on the register, if you know where your supporters are and encourage them to register as voters. If you don't do that, of course, the rest may not work for you. Yeah. So what we are saying this time around is that, look, let us have a common interest of ensuring that all eligible Kenyans are registered as voters. Number two, the methods you use must not be methods that are going to discriminate against any potential voters. And number three, while you will collaborate with the Commission, do not portray the Commission as your partner. What you're going to see out there is people are going to come up with billboards and they'll say, okay, so-and-so is running for this particular position. We want you to register as voters in partnership with IEBC. There are those calls. Right. So what we're saying that you can do that campaign, yes, but you cannot suggest that IEBC has endorsed you. So it must be a neutral type of collaboration. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There have been, and I have been able to listen to some of them, a lot, some music that is aimed at mobilizing voter registration at an ethnic level. There have been reports of vernacular radio station also calling out to their members to come out and support a particular, candidate, political candidate, in an ethnic kind of way. What is the Commission's take on ethnic mobilization? Well,
there are risks in ethnic mobilization, no doubt about that. But our politics is also ethnic based. So what we can only say is that we must find ways of mobilizing voters to the extent that we do not appear discriminative. We should not discriminate others by virtue of the fact that you want to win elections based on your ethnic bloc. So my take is that we should not take the risk of mobilizing people to the extent that when the outcome of the election is declared, we are likely to relapse into some sense of ethnic feeling that you've been excluded from the process. Right. In an open society like ours, I think pushing towards inclusion is far much better than trying to concentrate on your own ethnic base, because eventually you are leaders of the entire nation, but not ethnic bases.
What would you say to those who say that the IEBC has a better image at this point? There are critics who say that the reason why the Kenyan Electoral Board registered very paltry numbers in the first phase of the mass voter registration was because of a very bad image at that time. Do you believe that the IEBC has a better image today?
No, I wouldn't take it that way, because for us who are hands-on planning for the exercise, we know where the constraints were. We knew that we did not have enough budget, we do not have enough kits out in the field, we do not have enough resources to mobilize voters. So those limitations have consequences on the outcome. And of course, elections where people were seeing elections as far away. But now I can tell you is that if you look at the two main coalitions, they already launched voter registration campaign without our own intervention. Right. Our job was to declare the date and to deploy people. But you can see there's a lot of interest in that. I think it's much more than that. It's much more because of the coming elections, as opposed to really the commission itself. For us, where we are, we do our job professionally, and we remain to be professional. So, and the judgment will be left to Kenyans to make.
What about those who cast aspersions, especially from the political class,
Right.
on the IEBC time and time again? Does that have any effect on how the commission works? You know, making the confidence of Kenyans, you know, reducing the confidence Kenyans have on the electoral body continuously in political rallies. Does that affect how the commission works?
Well, you know that it's because of the same narrative that we've ended up having some changes to the commission. And for us, our commitment has been that whatever happens in the political space, we must remain professional. We must deliver on our constitutional mandate. We must resort to the rule of law, so that it's not about us appeasing the political class. We do that, we lose. Our game is to ensure that we are faithful to the Constitution. You may dislike us because we respect the Constitution, but that does not mean that we have, therefore, to manipulate the Constitution to suit your
Right.
interests. So we just want to encourage the political class that at the end of the day, we're joined by the Constitution. And when the Commission says something and does something that is unconstitutional, there are avenues to sort out some of those issues. And we are not perfect. So, and we also mean well for this country. In fact, that's our own commitment, that we must do what's in the best interest of the entire spectrum of Kenyans.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, maybe you don't know this, but when should Kenyans expect the new commissioners to be in office? Will they be taking charge of this voter registration?
Yeah, we had always expected that they report on time so that they be part and parcel of the registration exercise. Our own projections were such that we will start registration. First of all, we put a date of 20th December, but when we realized that the new commission will not be in place, we pushed it to January 13th in terms of planning. But then we realized that it's not going to be possible. So we said, okay, we must start on the 16th, come what may, because there are certain legal timelines that we must abide by. And if you work backwards, it only makes it necessary that we have that registration starting much earlier. So we looking forward that maybe the new commission is sworn in this week, towards the end of this week.
All right.
If Parliament approves the names on Tuesday, then of course they'll join us in the exercise.
Speaking of
That's
which,
deep end.
Right? Yeah, good. It will be.
Yeah.
How are you doing in terms of the timelines that you released in the beginning of last year?
Yes, in the beginning of last year, we had a clear roadmap of the elections. This exercise that we were doing was supposed to have been done much earlier. Yeah. However, when the debate about the future of the commission started, it went to the extent that the law was changed to affect the timelines that we had. Certain new activities were introduced, and now it was for us to adjust our program to suit the new legal framework. And that's why we're doing the things we're doing now to at least catch up with the remaining critical activities for purposes of the elections. So as we sit now, what is critical is we must complete the voter registration exercise, because our intention is to have the register ready 30 days before the election. And when I mean 30 days before the election, it means we must be able to certify it and publish it, make it available to our constituency offices across the country as well. So that is our major investment. The second bit has been about technology to be used in the elections.
Yes.
We all started very well. We knew where we wanted to go with the technology in terms of revamping the system that we had. But the new law that became operational October 4th last year, it required us to change the specifications of the technology that we were to deploy in elections. That took us time. We advertised last year. Yeah. Now we have a court, a review board matter over the same. Yeah. So there's going to be a little bit of delays, and that's what concerns us really. But we are optimistic that at least 60 days before the election, as the law requires, we must have that technology in place, be able to test it to the satisfaction of all the actors.
Speaking of, what is the latest on that, and what's the way forward over the technology, especially the BVR kits?
Not BVR kits. We are calling it the Kenya Integrated Election Management System.
All right.
Which combines both, which brings together voter registration, voter identification, and results transmission. We've added one with respect to candidate registration to make it more seamless and more useful. We advertised last year, and we are hoping that the matter will be resolved in the course of the week so that we'll be able to move forward. We are always optimistic that we did the right things, and whoever has an issue, then the board is the only place that you can clear that. So we hope that by the end of this week or end of this month, that matter will be sorted out so that we move forward.
All right.
Yeah.
How are you going? Are you planning as a commission to incorporate Kenyans in the diaspora in a much better way this time round?
Yeah, you know that last time what we did is that we went to the East African countries, the 4 of them.
Yeah.
The projections we had were not achieved. We ended up having about 3,000 or so voters in the diaspora. Our intention is to go back to the East African countries, plus one more region. And that one more region is a decision that we'll have to make at a policy level. We had hoped that the new commissioners will come on board so that we'll be able to advise them in terms of the options that are available to progressively address the issues of the diaspora voters.
All right.
Yeah.
This is a question that a lot of people ask me to elaborate for them. That is, if somebody wants to change their vote, if I registered at, Ward A or polling center A and I want to move, what does it take? And what will be the limitations?
Well, the law is also clear on the matter in terms of what needs to happen. If you want to change your electoral area or the place where you intend to vote, you go to the registration officer, in this case, our constituency officer, to be able to fill a form. We call it Form C. You'll fill that particular form and your details will be taken. Then they'll be further processed through our central database to effect those changes. Now, what we observed, for example, in the last registration is that there were so many people who were requesting to move their registration or their voting centers. And we did not expect those numbers. This time around, we still expect high numbers. However, we've put in place administrative measures so that if you go to our constituency offices, you're going to find there our registration officer with a clerk who is going to process your application for purposes of transfer. And you must go to the place where you want now to go vote.
All right.
Yeah.
If there was a politician, a cheeky politician, Ben Kitili is a cheeky politician, wants to, he has a lot of supporters in a particular place and wants to bring them to Nairobi where he is, what has the IEBC done to make sure they mitigate such plans?
Okay, I would have given you another version of it, but I get your point.
Go ahead.
Look, the law does not prohibit someone from registering anywhere in this country.
All right.
You can register anywhere. Previously, the law was such that you needed to prove residency, that you have to confirm that you've been living in this particular place for the last six months before you're allowed to register. Right. The current law does not, and that's why you find this behavior of people switching from one point to the other. However, from where we sit, we discourage conduct that is likely to cause unnecessary tension in particular places. Because if you deliberately transport people from one area to another, and you have a reaction from the locals, that is basically a security matter. And that's what we're actually discouraging. And we're also requesting the National Commission on Integration to monitor this and be able to take necessary action to discourage situations whereby people are moving. And usually, our own experience that it follows some ethnic pattern. So we want that to be discouraged because there could be a security element in that matter.
All right. I wouldn't let you go without asking you this. It has been talked about much. The contentious, I don't know if they are contentious, electoral laws that were passed by the Senate the other day and assented to by the President. I don't know if it's a done deal, but are you as a commission satisfied with the way that law was drafted, the provisions, especially that particular one of manual backup? I'm using the lay language here.
Right.
But are you satisfied as a commission?
What we only say is that it could have been much better than what we eventually got ourselves to.
Right.
Much better in the sense that what stakeholders needed to do was to understand what the issue was. Yeah. And I can tell you also is that when the law was passed, was first drafted, we as a commission were not really consulted in terms of the operational implications of the law. And we tried to intervene, but we were told we were too late. So much later, when we decided to put our issues on file so that people don't come later on to say the commission never told us, we put our issues on file. And that's where the debate started. However, the solutions were not necessarily the ones that the commission had suggested. And perhaps for us, we were much more conservative.
And what were your issues?
Our issues were, for example, a voter comes up at the polling station.
Right.
You are supposed to identify them using biometric kits. What happens if we are not able to identify that voter using the biometric system?
Right.
That was really the simple question, because our responsibility as the commission is to ensure that all registered voters must be given the rightful place to vote. And we cannot use administrative measures to prevent them from voting. So we had just gone back to say there are certain cases where voters usually show up at the polling station and we're not able to identify their biometric, identify them using biometric system. Mm-hmm. So we want an alternative mechanism that can enable us actually to allow this voter to vote. And we said, why not use the Ghanaian model? Mm-hmm. Ghana does actually identify voters using biometric. However, there is about 1% of voters who, for one reason or the other, may not be identified using the biometrics. Mm-hmm. And Ghana has a card, a barcoded card. So when they show up and the machine indicates that it's not able to identify the voter, they'll now enter the details of the details on the card in the system, right. And the image of the voter will show up. So instead of using the biometric, the people at the registration center, including the presiding officer, the polling station, including the presiding officer and the agents, can confirm that actually this person is the one who claims, using visual confirmation. Right. And by the way, we do that also in our elections. All the by-elections where we've had a voter that we're not able to identify them, we identify them visually by keying the text details of the registration ID. The image shows up and people confirm is the one. So we wanted to have that also in law. Otherwise, the manner in which the law was crafted is such that such a people will not be allowed to vote. Right. Okay? So that is how we went to the committee. But eventually, of course, things took their own course. Now, the law says the commission shall put in place a complementary mechanism that is simple, accurate, to ensure that technology is well used in the election. Right. You see, what does complementary mean? The commission is being given the discretion to determine which system, which mechanism to use. It doesn't even say manual, you see. So we have to, at some point, agree on this complementary mechanism. Right. And I think eventually the country is going to agree. We're going to come up with proposals, and we'll all agree and move on. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Great talking to you, shedding light on a lot of issues for Kenyans. Talking to Ezra Chiloba, the CEO of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, ahead of the launch, the beginning of the second phase of the mass voter registration exercise.